So currently, we are housing 83,000 prisoners in UK, over 117 prisons. Look behind me. What do you see? That one there, on the right-hand side, that's me. A thug, a gangster, someone dangerous. Between me and my 7 co-defendants, we were sentenced to 100 years in prison. Today, I have turned my life around. I now work for the NHS as a researcher and involved in community activities to make changes, to give back to the community. Several years before this photo, when the doors slammed behind me, as I stepped into the prison, I found myself lost, without any sense of direction, without any positive role models. I was one of the 2 ringleaders in a gang, and we were importing firearms from America to UK. I was sentenced to 24 years for my part. So on the day of the sentencing, October 2011, I walked through them prison gates, and I had a mixture of feelings: fear, remorse, regret, anxiety. I had already decided by this time that I needed to change, become a better person, become a better human being within the society. I wanted to learn. I wanted to learn from my mistake. I wanted to utilize my time in prison to learn, including academic. You'd have heard the phrase, as one door closes, another one opens. I had to open these doors and break through. I needed sport to change my life around and pay back for what I had been involved in. As I walked through the prison gates into the corridors of my cell, I knew the next 24 years of my life are going to be difficult and challenging situations. Honestly, I was scared and I was full of remorse. Prison was not easy, and of course it shouldn't be. I was ready to change, but wasn't sure how. What I could do to become a better person in prison. I was lost again. I didn't have a clear idea of what I wanted to do next. During the first couple of years, I met someone who would help me realize that I could change and become better. This guy was serving 27 years for VAT fraud. We spent a lot of time together. He was sharing his story and his wisdom with me. I recall one of the many conversations that we had, and the words stick in my head. And the words were, why don't you use your time to better yourself? Do something constructive to be a better person than the one that walked in. And that stuck in my head. So after we had that conversation, that evening, I went back to my cell, and the words kept on going round and round in my head. I was warming up to the idea of coming out at the end of my sentence with a degree. Not basic numeracy and literacy, that wasn't enough for me. I wanted to push myself and achieve a degree. I certainly had the time. And I wanted to focus on something that would make me feel I've achieved something in prison to become better. That night, and for days that followed, the moments become clear. Lots of thoughts bouncing around in my head. And these were some of the questions that went through my head. Do people like me do a degree? Is it possible? What do I choose to study? Who's going to fund it? So these were all the questions that kept on going through my head. But at the same time, I knew as a British Pakistani, life was going to be tough. It was going to be hard as a minority in prison. So many cases of racism. Every day, I would hear racist and aggressive language thrown towards me. I had to find a way to move forward and dealing with the constant daily attacks I was facing. I was at times treated like a third and fourth class citizen in comparison to my peers that were white. I always advocate now that the pen is mightier than the sword. I believe that people should lead by example, and I wanted to do that. I put my head down and worked to become a better person, helping other inmates to work and develop on their own personal achievements. During these difficult personal times, I invested time to support others by mentoring them, just listening to them, talking to them with kindness and as a friend, rather than another inmate or a prisoner. I would try hard to make it for them to see that there are alternative ways to overcome barriers, manage their emotions, frustrations, and give them a safe space to talk. In doing so, I built a good relationship with many of the other inmates throughout the prison. I was determined to work hard on my own personal development despite the circumstances that I was in. I was made to access everything in prison. Depending on which prison I was in, which wing I was on, who I was around, I had to adapt to continue with my plan to develop, learn, and become better. Education and sport to improve and develop should be available to all. Policies are interpreted by officers in the way that they want to interpret it. This is sometimes done in a positive way, and personally, I felt I was constantly being made disadvantaged. It's like a postcode lottery. Different prisons in different geographic areas have different opportunities that they will offer. I wanted to change for the better. Prisons should be deterrents, but it should also give people hope and encourage them to help them to make changes. First of all, besides coming to terms of your sentence, you are constantly battling with the system to get what should be offered to you to help you to have a fighting chance to re-enter the society as a positive human being. But my experience was having to fight for my right, but my ability to change. I had to fight with the prison to allow them to give me time to study, as it's not recognized as a purposeful activity within your core day. And that's if your offender manager allows you to study. After that, you have to fight with the learning program to get yourself on the degree program. And then you're looking for the funding. Who's going to fund it? That's also another fight. And all of that after someone thinks you're fit enough to actually study at that level. So there's a lot. The criteria is tough. It's determined by the sentence that is imposed on you, along with the length of the sentence. By this time, most of the inmates are wanting to get something positive out of this sentence, are worn out, and they give up. All this before they even started their studies. However, luck was on my side for the first time in a long time. I was in a good prison. There was a lot of opportunity and information that was given to me. I was asked to do an access year before my degree, and I was able to study from that. This particular prison was really good at encouraging individuals to start learning. But one thing for sure, as my sentence progressed and my categories became lower, I was in a Cat C prison. There, I found there was nothing in place to continue my higher education. I met inmates that I knew from before that had dropped out of education. And when I asked them why, they told me it's too much fighting with the rules. And there was nothing there in place for them to actually go and seek information and guidance. It came up to a point where I had to send my own assignments, post them myself in a timely manner to the universities. Long story short, in some prisons, there are many policies that are outdated, and there is a lack of support and emphasis on the value of learning, self-improvement, and education. You do not get to attend any lectures, and your communication with your tutor is very limited. The only way that you actually get to study is your textbooks. Need I say more? And your classroom looks like a deprived prison cell. However, the Open University did help. They did their best as much as possible, showed compassion, flexibility, commitment, but prison red tape forever wrapped tight. And their approach almost suffocated me and made me question, why am I doing this? In the darkest moments in my cell, I used to think, is this worth it? I fought a lot with the system, using their own policies to win. But each and every time, it was exhausting, leaving me with very little enthusiasm and energy to continue with my study. But on the day of my graduation was the best day. I graduated in combined social science with honours. Thank you. It's important that politicians and policies help tackle some of the challenges experienced by many inmates, from serious violence, drug use, access to mental health, and an opportunity through learning to become a better person when they're coming out of prison. So, as highlighted at the start, we have a population of 83,000 prisoners across UK, the third highest in Europe. The statistics ain't great. One recent report highlighted that once released, 75% will reoffend within 10 years. This highlights our current approach doesn't work. So we need to change. I know it's complex, and we have so many organizations and political parties trying to do something, but we need to be part of the conversation and the change we want to see. So today I have a couple of asks of you. To be compassionate. Some people do learn from their mistakes, but does that mean that they should not be given a chance to change? Don't judge a book by its cover or stereotype them. I am a living example that if given the right support and opportunity, change is possible. Remember that positive rehabilitation of offenders can change behaviours, lives, tackle with the underlying causes. Just one final point. You may have noticed that I've been using cue cards. This is to help me present my idea to you today. In life, we need to have the right tool to achieve the task at hand. Thank you. Thank you.